Welcome back to another episode of Silent Pal Stay at Home and Watch Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're reviewing Parasite. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan. I'm going to start off by saying that this is not my first movie I've seen from this director. I've seen his other movies. When I saw the trailer in the theaters, I said I'm going to come watch it, and I'm glad I watched it. I'm going to start off my review by going down my pros. What I liked about this movie was the way that it was made with so many layers that every time you watch it, you discover something, a new element of the movie. The first time I saw it, I used to describe him as Alfred Hitchcock, the Korean version, but now I actually came to see more things. This time around, I started seeing that since we just saw Rope, we reviewed Rope. In Rope, we saw two characters having a conversation and one in the background eavesdropping on the conversation. That's how the shot was made. Well, in this movie, we saw people eavesdropping unintentionally or intentionally on the stairs. And the director would frame it in the way that we saw them trying to listen in. And I was like, oh, this is something Hitchcock would do. And I was like, wait, is he doing it on purpose or is he probably paying homage to Hitchcock? I'm not really sure, but I'll leave it up to you to decide. I put it in my pros because either way, I loved it. I loved how he did it. So to me, is this kind of voyeurism element that he added to it. People eavesdropping on everybody. There's no privacy in the Parks family. Even though there's so many walls, there is no privacy. My next thing is the whole idea of how he shot the movie. The Kim's family live in a sub-apartment basement. Their apartment is kind of lower than the street. When he's watching the Kims at the beginning, he's recording them from a higher perspective. They're sitting lower. In a sense, he's putting them at a lower status. When their son goes in for the interview to the Parks family, we see the camera actually stay on the lower part of the hill as he's climbing up. So he's climbing up to a higher status. As he's doing this in elevation, he's doing this also in a metaphorical way by climbing the ladder in the social status. Their house actually has windows where he lives, so he's looking out into where the drunk guy is pissing and everything is happening, people are rioting and everything, so he can see society. The Parks family, once he goes inside the gate, it's so heavy we can even hear it open up like mechanically. And then when he goes in, it closes. He goes up and he looks around, it's covered by trees. He can't even see the neighbors. The Parks are actually living higher, but they're closed off. They don't see society. They live in their own little bubble. So I like that kind of way that he films the shots and he basically designed the sets. So to me, he took a lot of time and thought about how he was going to make the sets and film around them. This whole idea of him writing the script, to me, seems like he took a lot of time and effort and he didn't write it overnight. So he gave it a lot of thought and process. And especially the actors, I'm pretty sure he gave it a lot of thought who was going to play what role. So that's my next point for my pros. Each person, according to the title, Parasite, it's not that the Kims are parasite feeding off the Parks, but at the same time, the Kims are playing off each other. They depend on each other. They're coexisting with each other. Each member of the family depends on each other. They're in a symbiotic relationship with each other. They need to work with each other. Each character depends on each other. The son brings in the sister brings in the dad brings in the mother to the house, to the Parks house. And this is how they work. And it's not that they are bad people, it's that they are not doing well enough and they see an opportunity. I'm going to put out the dish part when the mom comes back and calls in and says, hey, can you prepare this dish? Instant noodles with high expensive meat. It's like, wow, it's so shocking that rich people can basically say, hey, yeah, can you make me this common noodle dish, but can you add really super expensive fine cuts of meat? Why? Oh, because my son that's his favorite dish. Like, really? To me, it's this critique of how extreme this gap, poor and rich people live, this whole division. We're out of touch with each other. But I'm going to go on quickly to my cons. One of my cons is going to be the length of the movie. It's 2 hours and some change. I think it could have been cut a little shorter. So that's one of my cons. There's some parts that could be edited out. You can cut some of the fat out and still have most of the points in there. I just felt that it was too long. And for some people to sit there, and especially nowadays that there's movies that you need to read subtitles. And I know people are going to complain about subtitles. I don't have a problem with subtitles. I can watch subtitles. I've watched subtitles before. I enjoy subtitles, and I think foreign movies, they have a lot to offer, but a lot of people can't get over that, just for their sake. I wish that this movie was a little shorter so it can get their attention, especially if I'm going to recommend it to somebody who's not used to subtitles. So the length of the movie could have been a little shorter. Other than that, I guess this movie, to me, it's a highly recommended movie to people who haven't seen it. Every time I see it, I find something else that I like. Like this time around, the flooding scene, it just gave me a different perspective. It just added more to the movie. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw the movie and what grade he gave the movie.
Okay, so I guess maybe I should start off my review by acknowledging that I did not see the movie before knowing that it won Best Picture of the Year at the Academy Awards in 2019. Because of that, my expectations might have been thrown off in a bit, knowing that it has won such a high titled award. I was expecting a movie that would just dazzle me. For the most part, the movie did its job. The movie sort of accomplished that, but there are things that I had issues with the film. Maybe given where I'm at, it'll provide some perspective from the hype that was Parasite at the time, because I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the first Korean film to have ever been nominated at the Academy Awards or to have won such a title at the Academy Awards. So props to the movie for being an international film and being able to accomplish all of the things that it has been able to accomplish. But with that being said, I suppose I just want to add onto some of the things that Sal brought up. In terms of what I liked about the film, the cinematography, I really loved that aspect. Like, it felt that I was kind of there with the characters whenever they were going through their ordeal, or the sort of feeling that the director wanted me to feel behind this character, say the wife of the rich family, or the main character who I believe to be the son from the Kim family. So I think the movie did a great job there, providing perspective through the shots that they gave us. The way the characters reacted towards one another, I found it believable in some sense, but at the same time, I didn't find it believable in others, and I'll get back to that later in my cons. But, I was kind of split 50-50 there for the Kim's family to kind of talk amongst each other and how they would sort of accomplish the sort of thing that they wanted to accomplish by infiltrating the Parks families and overtaking the jobs there. And again, it kind of speaks to maybe some of the themes of the film. Sal mentioned the status quo of people who are rich and the people who are poor, and how the Kim family came to realize how people of higher status, so to speak, act towards one another and act towards people who they kind of look down upon in a way, which was heavily depicted by the husband from the Kim's family. He was probably one of the few characters who really made his appearance felt towards his family in light of how he felt towards his son. It felt like that was probably the one person that I would probably single out that you could see the father being very happy around versus how he treated his wife. It felt that the father from the Kim family sort of realized this, and he kept on bringing up the notion of, oh, but I see that you guys are so together, so you love your wife, right? It's always like that sort of hesitation from Mr. Park. Again, the movie does a good job at times portraying these characters and where they're coming from and to whom they were reacting to. One of the scenes from the film that made me sort of consider the movie would go in a different direction in terms of the genre of the film was the scene where the son from the Parks family was eating cake during the middle of the night and saw a ghost. And I thought, oh, is this film going to have some sort of horror aspect to it? Because again, based on how the cinematography was able to portray the guy who was living in the basement, how he was coming up from the stairs from that straight on view. When I saw it, it kind of creeped me out. And I thought to myself, wow, they're going to go like horror here, because I wasn't sensing it until then, but it would have been an interesting twist. That was kind of like the peak of it though. The movie, of course, turned out to be more of a suspense thriller than horror, but again, it just speaks to how well the shot was delivered and how the director was able to convey the sort of emotion that he probably wanted me as an audience to feel at that particular moment by having the guy come up from the stairs like that. And of course, the social commentary is there. I already mentioned it, and Sal mentioned it too. The way things are from people who aren't wealthy and who are just trying to meet ends meet, or struggling day by day to earn that money to pay for debts or whatever. And then you see the other side and how they see people in general. But even given that, and this is going to my cons list now, I would say that despite the social commentary that the movie was going for, I felt like there was something missing. And this is kind of like speaking to something that I thought the film could have done better at. Yes, they brought up these ideas of the rich and the poor. I acknowledge that these social commentaries are there, but the issue that I have with them is you're bringing them to the forefront as a theme to your movie, but you're not addressing them in terms of ways of trying to resolve them. You're just pointing them out. It's like, oh, this is just how things are, and that's it. Unless you're trying to say at the end that murder is okay and the father was justified in doing what he did to Mr. Park. Otherwise, there wasn't anything that I noticed that made me feel that something was being done for the better, for change. Because of that, it didn't feel that the social commentary was necessary at all. Like, made me feel that they could have just minimized exposure to that social commentary and focused more on the elements that would have made a movie, in my eyes, more compelling. So this is where I have mixed feelings about the film, where the movie does a great job at certain aspects, but in other areas I felt it could have been better. Going back to what I talked about, the characters of this film, they make sense in certain aspects of the film, but in other aspects I was left scratching my head in terms of their motives, the way some of these characters look at life, and how their actions are contradictory to what it is that they want to accomplish. For instance, the Kim family. Sal says something very interesting. I guess this is where we kind of feel differently about the Kim family and the Park family. I personally feel that the Kim family are actually bad people in this film, but that's not to say that I don't think the Park family is free from wrongdoing themselves, but that's kind of how I feel about both families. Like, they're both bad in certain ways, but then you see goods in both family as well. So that's how I would describe both family. But if we're just focusing on the Kim family and how the movie was portraying their characters to me, this is where I feel conflicted about the family and how their actions did not sort of line up to how they feel, or how their actions don't line up to the sort of mentality they have. It seems like they're the type of family who would do anything to get to this promised land of wealth by infiltrating the Parks family's residence. And for me, when I see that, I'm thinking to myself, well, if they have this much drive to do what it is that they want to do here, I feel that they could have maybe given themselves a better opportunity to get away from the situation that they were in already by doing some good in their life. I think the son from the Kim's family is the one individual who kind of would represent this, because he has his demeanor to want to help people. And I guess I kind of saw that by his willingness to accept his friend's opportunity to teach. And maybe that could have just led down a bright path. But then he used that opportunity for the purpose of greed. And because of that, he involved his sister, and then eventually the father got involved, and then the mother. I think what didn't help me here was how they introduced me to the family. But because the movie just started off depicting this family in such a negative light, the pizza box folding, and how they talked their way out of the poor job they were doing at it to just get paid. Again, their actions are contradictory to the meaningful lines that some of these characters have. How the father mentioned later that it's better to go through life without having any plans, so that when your plans don't come to reality, then you don't feel disappointment. Then again, looking back at what you guys were doing to the Parks family, it's kind of like, well, it's not like you guys were doing good things anyway, based on what you guys have shown me. Family's kind of in the wrong here. I do feel that the movie, in a way, does this thing too much revolving around irony, because it was done so many times. It made me undervalue what had been meaningful messages. For instance, the son who was given the rock from his friend and was told that this rock was gonna bring wealth to the family, well, it was the thing that ended up physically hurting the son towards the end of the film. The irony behind the father of the Kim family and how he was down in the basement talking to the husband of the former housewife, and how he ended up living in the basement later. How the daughter from the Kim family was shown to have the time of her life in the bathroom at at the Parks residence, but when they came back to a flooded neighborhood, she was the one sitting in their bathroom enduring the crap, literally, that was spewing out of the toilet. So again, it just felt like they were shoving too many ironies at me. Whereas if they would have just kept it to a few and played to those cards to get me as an audience to feel something that, oh, how everything kind of came in full circle, then I would have had a more profound experience versus them just throwing ironies left and right. You know, at the end of the day, again, the characters, they're okay. The story, I would say, is pretty generic, nothing very special. Again, I don't want to talk too much about the social commentary here because it's there, but again, my problem with it being there is it wasn't addressed in terms of there being some sort of strive for change. And because of that, I was more inclined to just review the movie based on the elements I would normally want to see in a movie. You know, character development, pacing, cinematography, things that we normally talk about here on Sal's podcast. And I would say I liked the film, but probably not as much as other people do. I would still recommend it because it is an interesting watch if you imagine where they could have taken this film and the order that some of these scenes could have taken place. For instance, I was imagining to myself at the end of the film, what if they started off film with the father from the Kim family down in the basement area already? But given that there is no context as to who this character is yet, or even for that matter, where the location is, like we might not even know that this is in the basement area, but just start us off there. And then as the movie progresses, we come to know that, oh, this guy has been down here for many years now, then I think it would have been a more compelling story in that retrospect. At least it provided me with some afterthought. For me, I do like movies like that. The movie wasn't just one and done, and I was left with nothing left to sort of ponder about. But yeah, but this movie did leave me with that sort of impression. So that's a great aspect to the film, I feel like. So I'm going to give this film a 7 out of 10. Probably not as high as how other people saw the film. Would I still recommend it? Yeah, I would still say go and watch it.
So just to add to your comment about that the movie talked about the social commentary, but it did not add a solution. The same idea that at the end of the movie, when we see the son acting like he's going to purchase a house, and then all of a sudden it goes back to that he's just daydreaming. Oh, it could have ended right there as a happy ending that he bought the house and saved his dad, to like, boom, in your face, here's reality. He doesn't have the money to buy it. That's the reality we live in right now, you know? So to me, it's a reality check. It's like, look, not everything is easy. Also, the fact that you said how the family, they were not that good. I see that point. They started off by, living by their means, getting easy jobs, barely passing by. They had medals on their wall. The mother, I guess, had a medal for like an Olympic sport or something. And then we see them down on their luck. And then once they see an opportunity to get into a wealthy job position, they start infiltrating it. So that's when greed comes in. And once people see greed, that's when we start noticing that greed consumes people, and it's a bad thing according to what we or I've been taught in life. Too much greed leads to bad things. I do see, like you said, some things that it lacked in. To me, it just seems that the director did his own little character study in each person, so you can see it that way. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I highly recommend it to people to go see it. It's kind of weird to say, but I kind of like how they use the lens to include a wider shot in some retrospects, and other shots they're really close up and the macro lenses. To me, that in some movies that wouldn't work, but in this film it does work, if it makes sense. Especially in the flooding scene, it's a wide angle shot, and that kind of really works for me. So in that sense, I highly recommend this movie. With that, I guess that does it for this review of Parasite. Please join us next time when we're going to review Birds of Prey and the fabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
Can I help you?
Why, yes, you can. I'm here to report a terrible crime.
And what terrible crime is that?
This one.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below, and like always, keep watching movies.